What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today I'm pretty excited because I get to finally showcase my Shadow Malamar, a Pokemon that it took me so long to grind this out during this last Rocket event. I did over 800 Team Rocket checks just to find a decent Shadow Inkay. All of my Inkays up until this point were basically terrible, about the worst spread you could imagine, but I finally got a good one, and I'm very excited to put it to use. Let's get into the battles and see what this Pokemon can do. Alright, first game of the day, Shadow Malamar as our lead up against a Jumpluff. Now, this matchup is going to be very similar to the regular Malamar into Shadow Jumpluff matchup, so if you've ever played out a regular Malamar, you'll know how this is going to go. We're going to go for a lot of Psywave damage as well as a Foul Play before they're going to reach an Acrobatics. Fairy Wind damage will add up against us, but Psywave damage will add up against them. You can see we can get a nice little two-shot here with our Foul Plays, although because Acrobatics is such a heavy damaging move, I'm going to respect it, go for a Shield, and this Jumpluff is going to properly throw the move that I did end up calling. At this point, I will have to outpace them to this next charge who try to get their shield right before they do throw their next Acrobatics. Foul Play being thrown, they do shield, and now they're going to go for another Acrobatics or maybe an Aerial Ace bait, depending on what they want to do. I will shield this up. I feel like at this point, just calling that nuke would be a little bit catastrophic. It would be a little bit hard to knock out this Pokemon if I did let that Acrobatics go, and fortunately for us, we did call that move properly. In comes the next Foul Play, we draw their final shield, and our opponent, what is going on here? They could have got to an Aerial Ace potentially. They might have been reaching for an Acrobatics, but instead they swap into a Lapras to try to, I don't even know, catch a move? I have Superpower here. I resist all of your fast move pressure. I get to a second Superpower. I don't even know what's going on right now, but Shadow Malamar is absolutely popping off. Second Superpower easily knocks out that Lapras. We know Jumpluff has almost no HP, and we see their final Pokemon is a Unovan Stunfisk. This Pokemon is actually a little bit tricky here for my backline. The electric damage is good into my Blastoise, the ground damage is good into my Tinkaton, but we have Hydro Cannon as well as Bulldoze, so as long as we can land one move on each of my Pokemon here, we should be able to win this game. In comes the Hydro Cannon. Our opponent has no shields to hide behind. They have to overfarm to have any chance, but they overfarm just a little bit too much. I can get the CMP and knock out this Ufisk here with my Blastoise. I can now roll out down the rest of that Jumpluff and take the win in this first game of the day. Next matchup, we're going to see Shadow Malamar as our lead into a Talonflame. Alright, a decent lead. I'd rather have my Blastoise against this. Our opponent actually just instantly swaps, though, into their own Shadow Drapion. They also instantly throw an Aqua Tail before I can swap out. Probably a good play by them. Honestly, I probably should have just come instantly into my Tinkaton, but now we can bring it in here, keep our energy on Shadow Malamar, and just preserve Switch if I can in this matchup. That said, Switch is not that important to me right now. I have my Blastoise in the back as well as a Malamar with a lot of energy, so I don't necessarily want to go down shields to keep Switch, but at this point, I would love to see our opponent shield. Another charge move coming through. Tinkaton can generally survive 3 Aqua Tails here. If they do have a Poison Sting Breakpoint against you, then you will get knocked out by the 3 Aqua Tails plus a fast move pressure, but if they have a low attack Drapion, or if you have a very high defense Tinkaton, you can actually make that matchup so much better. In comes that Talonflame. It will incinerate us all the way down here, but I can get a parting play rough off, and they actually switch lock their Talon in, so I can farm them all the way down with our Blastoise, get a ton of energy for the backline, and potentially start using my Blastoise and my Shadow Malamar to sweep this endgame. They have a bit of HP left over on that Shadow Drapion, and they're almost out of Brave Bird. I did shield the first move. The Fly Bait was a little bit tricky to have called, and now they will get to a Brave Bird against us before I can farm them all the way down. With that said, I know I can use this energy in the backline. I have a lot of energy on both my Blastoise and my Shadow Malamar, and their final Pokemon is revealed as a Dusclops, actually. I didn't see if that was Shadow or non-Shadow. I think Shadow would be a little bit easier to take down because the two-shot of these Hydro Cannons would be a little bit more consistent, and it is going to be that Shadow Dusknoir, or Dusclops, that is. And comes the second Hydro Cannon here into them. This will likely draw a shield, but they also know they can't really shield. If they do shield that move up, then I can just come in with my Malamar, go for the Foul Play I have loaded, so they very wisely actually no-shield that Hydro Cannon, but I think now I can just go for a full fast move down against the rest of their team. While my Blastoise will go down here, I can Psywave this Pokemon down in 2, maybe 3 Psywaves, and no Pokemon on their team has any energy. I can Psywave this down, I can Psywave down the Talon, as well as that Shadow Drapion. Our opponent realizing this ends up top lefting. GG there to them. Next game, Malamar into the Shadow Malamar matchup here. I have the Shadow, they have the regular. The only thing that matters in this matchup, though, is who wins CMP. Foul Play being thrown very instantly here. I know this is a little bit awkward because while the regular Malamar into regular Malamar matchup is going to be dependent on who ends up just either going for a superpower at some point or potentially making a catch, this one is so much more awkward because 2 Foul Plays basically knock out. So I'm going to swap out here. I actually have a decently high rank Shadow Malamar here, so I don't think I win CMP. I'm going to take that damage I got, swap into my Blastoise, and start tripping them down here. Our opponent is staying in for quite a while. They actually try to catch a move on their Shadow Jumpluff, That's honestly fine by me. I have a Skull Bash ready to go. These super effective rollouts as well will add up over time. In fact, we actually draw a shield here from the Shadow Jumpluff. This is going to be kind of interesting. They could go for an Acrobatics if they want to knock us out, and I feel like they will full send. They know my defense stat is going to be boosted. They do, and that's a lot of energy down the drain for our opponent. I can go for a Skull Bash now, get a lot of chip damage into the Shadow Jumpluff, and then potentially drain the energy on my Tinkaton. That said, I'm not sure exactly how much player Tinkaton's going to have in the backline. They had a Malamar lead and a Jumpluff in the back. That is two very weak Pokemon to a Tinkaton already, so they might just have a hard answer to me in the backline. I'm hoping they don't, but I'm just going to be trying to farm down this Pokemon and see what we can do. Actually, no, it's not going to be a hard answer to us. It's going to be a Carbink. So they're kind of just 3 times weak to a Tinkaton. That's crazy in this meta. I feel like Tinkaton is not that rare. I feel like if you're going to be 3 times weak to this Pokemon, then you might as well have a few softer weaknesses to it. I don't know. We'll see what we can do here, though, because honestly, this Carbink is still very bulky, right? I don't have any Steel-type damage, so while I am completely bashing this trainer's choices of teams, it might still be an awkward spot for me to be in. All right, Carbink will be forced into throwing energy against my Blastoise here. They do reveal Power Gem, so it will take them just a little bit longer to reach charge moves, but man, I still need 2 charge attacks to knock out this Carbink here. In comes Bulldoze number 1. Bulldoze number 2 would knock him out, especially after that first debuff that I got, but because they're able to force all of our energy here, this is still going to be a tricky endgame. They have some energy left over on their Malamar, I believe. They shield there, though, which is an interesting play, and they come in with that Malamar. This potentially leads us open to a win condition right now. Bulldoze is not quite enough to knock him out, but I can get them into Psywave downrange potentially. I can't really shield my Tinkaton at this point, because if I do, then my opponent is going to be able to just land a charge move against my Malamar, so instead I'm going to now farm down the Malamar. That Carbink in the backline is low. Everything on their team is low at this point. I have a shield. Our opponent is thinking about what they want to do. They get Psywave down on the Jumpluff, and now Carbink has nowhere to go. GG to our opponent. All right, next game, Shadow Malamar into Claydol, a matchup that honestly, you might on paper think this is a good matchup for Malamar. We're a Dark type into a Psychic type, but while our Slywave damage is adding up a little bit, all they need to do is shield our first Foul Play, go for a Rock Tomb debuff, and we will be forced into shielding that move, or we'll take a ton of damage. In comes their charge move, and this will lower my attack stat, while also doing quite a bit of damage to us, so I don't really like where we're at in this game. Rock Tomb, yeah, it does a massive amount of damage. I'm going to save a bit of HP on our Malamar if I can, and if I also can, go for a Hydro Cannon against the Claydol, but they make a wise play to try to catch the move on this Toxapex. With that said, I have a Hydro Cannon, or rather a Skull Bash, ready to go against this. These rollouts as well adding up over time. I think if I do properly shield up a Sludge Wave here, I can actually come out of this matchup with a double defense boost, as well as potentially just go for a full rollout down. Sludge Wave coming through, I do shield it up properly, and comes our next Skull Bash here in just a second. How much damage is this going to do? Blastoise, unlike the Feraligatr, is able to have a lot of play in this matchup, so we're able to potentially roll out down before they do reach a second charge move. I guess they will reach something, but I think this is just going to be a brine here. I don't think this is enough for a Sludge Wave, which means that a double defense boosted Blastoise can easily survive that move and potentially put in some work in the endgame. Our opponent thinking about what they want to do at this point. They come in with a mono ghost-type Pokemon. I think, yeah, that was a Corsola. All right, well, that's not the best, not the worst case scenario to be in. I land 1 Hydro Cannon. They have no idea what I have in the back. I'm just hoping at this point I can reach 2 more Hydro Cannons, but it's looking a little bit close. I'm not sure if I can. If I get farmed down without getting a final Hydro Cannon off, this might be pretty bad. I'm going to reach for it, but we get farmed down. Uh-oh. All right, so now this thing has so much energy on it. That Claydol as well in the back line is going to be a little bit tricky to take down because they have a full charge move of energy loaded. In comes that Claydol here, and while I am going to be able to survive the charge move pressure, these fast moves are doing so much damage. In comes likely a Rock Tomb to debuff my attack stat here, and now I think I have to swap into my Shadow Malamar, try to go for a foul play before they can snipe us down, but I don't think that they're going to let this go. If they do, maybe there's a chance, but if they shield this move up, then they're going to be able to farm us all the way down. They're still outside of range where a Play Rough would knock them out from my Tinkaton. While I do get the CMP here, we're not going to be able to knock him out. I'm almost certain at this point Claydol will survive, Mud Slap me down, even debuff me for good measure. This is not looking great. GG here to our opponent. I think they have me. Rock Tomb, not enough to knock us out, but the next Mud Slap will. That's unfortunate stuff there. I thought we were in a good spot, but just barely not able to close it out. Next matchup, Shadow Lapras in the lead. Actually, one of the best lead matchups we could see here. Our opponent instantly swapping out. I believe that's a Jumpluff. Is that Shadow or non-Shadow? It's going to be a non-Shadow Jumpluff, actually, which means I think our own Tinkaton is going to be in a very good spot. Got a decent amount of Psywave damage into this Pokemon as well, which I think is going to put them into range where 2 Play-Roughs will knock them out. The non-Shadow Jumpluff actually is kind of hard to knock out for a Tinkaton, mainly because you need 2 Play-Roughs plus a lot of faster pressure here. Yeah, you can see even after those Psywaves, it's just barely enough to two-shot them with our Play-Roughs. Another Acrobatics being thrown. This move will put us into the yellow, but not quite enough to put us even in Aerial Ace range. So if they want to knock us out, once again, they'll have to throw yet another Acrobatics. Flare Ruff being thrown, it does knock out this Pokemon, and honestly, at this point, there's not a lot of Pokemon in the backline that a Shadow Malamar up this much energy doesn't want to see. It's going to be a Tinkaton, so honestly, maybe I should have just kept the switch advantage for us this game, but I think we're still in a pretty good spot. I go for a Foul Play Bait, we get a shield, and now I'm going to start full sending these superpowers. In comes the first one. Do we get a second shield? If we do, we probably just win this game with Blastoise anyway. We see a no shield, which also is just as good. At this point, if they don't go for a Play Rough as well, I think I can survive, get a final superpower off as well, and then Blastoise up a shield against that Lapras should be in a fantastic spot. We call the Bulldoze, we go for a superpower. This should knock them out or come very close to it. And yeah, while we will get Fairy Winded down, we can bring our Tinkaton in, then come in Blastoise into this Shadow Lapras, and there's not much that they can do. Our opponent, realizing that, ends up top lefting, and we're able to take the win in that game. Next matchup, not a great lead here. We're going to see an Azumarill, a Pokemon that Malamar can dance around, but because we are the Shadow, it doesn't actually help us in this matchup. You can see Bubbles are doing more damage to us, but we're not doing any extra fast move pressure to them with our Psywaves, even though we are getting that 20% damage increase. We make a nice catch on a move. Actually, an Ice Beam, they try to bait our Malamar, fantastic stuff, but a Shadow Annihilate in the backline kind of is going to be a bit of a threat to our team. Hydro Cannon being thrown, this probably won't get a shield from them saying I have no fast move pressure, but it does do quite a bit of damage, and if I can survive a Rage Fist here, then maybe I can get a shield. I'm hoping I can. It's going to be so close. Shadow Annihilate is very attack weighted, and it does knock us out. That is kind of catastrophic. If I could have got a shield advantage, I would have felt like we were in a pretty good spot here. I can get a farm down, but I have 100 energy and basically nowhere to throw it. That Azu in the backline is going to absorb all of my damage here. With that said, I have a Tinkaton, and I have a hope that maybe they're kind of triple weak to Tinkaton, or at least triple soft to it. We'll have to see. In comes our superpower to try to get any sort of damage into them that we can. We put them into the yellow, but man, in the back is a Claydol, another Pokemon that is not too great for Tinkaton to see. Play Rough is going to try its best here to two-shot them, but we know that Claydol has access to debuffing moves, and while I have a bit of damage on our Fairy Winds as well as Play Rough into this Pokemon, after this debuff, it's not going to be enough to two-shot them. Rock Tomb comes through, it's able to put us deep into the yellow, Mud Slaps are going to farm us all the way down, and even if I can knock out this Claydol here with our Malamar, it's not going to be before we get debuffed by a Rock Tomb. This is not looking ideal. Down goes our Tinkaton. We have energy on our Malamar. We're going to try to go for the CMP. Our opponent does end up going instantly for the charge move, so I don't give a sneak over to them, but obviously a shield's going to come up, they're going to debuff us, and because the Azu has a decent amount of energy, and it's also going to be kind of hard to take out this Claydol, I'm not sure we can win this game. In comes the Azu. We have nowhere to hide at this point. Our fast move pressure doing almost nothing to them, and our charge move pressure is going to try to do something, but even still, Malamar is in almost fast move farm down range. How much energy do they have here? If they can get one more bubble, or maybe a couple more bubbles to get to an Ice Beam, they're going to win. If somehow I can get to back-to-back charge moves, maybe there's a chance here, but no, they're already at the Ice Beam. This will knock out my Shadow Malamar. Unfortunately, not able to dance our way out of this game, but it was pretty close there, so GG to our opponent. Next game, Shadow Malamar up against a Clodsire, a very good lead matchup. One of the few matchups where it's like, you actually do get a bit of extra Psywave damage here with Shadow Malamar, so we're able to do so much passive pressure. With that said, we're a Shadow Malamar. We're going to have to shield anything they're going to throw. If it's an Earthquake that they throw here, it would basically one-shot us. If it's a Sludge Bomb bait, well played by them, but I can still outpace them to these foul plays. In comes Foul Play number 1. This will not be quite enough to knock them out here. In the 2-shield matchup, the Psywave plus the Foul Play damage would be, but in the 0s and in the 1s, Clodsire will likely reach a charge move against the Malamar. In comes Foul Play number 2. We do draw the first shield from our opponent, and while I will have to go down shields pretty early in this game, I think I'm fine with that. There's a lot of Pokemon in the backline that I could probably get a shield back from with my Shadow Malamar. A Shadow Blastoise actually comes in. I'm going to instantly throw with this superpower, try to get as much damage as I can, and if they no-shield this move, then they're in farm down range. If they shield that move up, I could have gone for a Skull Bash with my Blastoise. Either way, we just caught a move on our Blastoise, likely going to be a Hydro Cannon being thrown. It is fantastic catch by us. I don't think they even reach a Skull Bash here, which means we get a full rollout down. We do take another Hydro Cannon, but I'll take that any day of the week. Hydro being thrown into us, it will put us deep into the yellow, but we have so much energy, basically back-to-back charge moves here. Our opponent is in a very tricky spot. Smart play by them, though, coming in Clodsire, realizing that while I am a Water type, my Rock type fast move pressure will not farm them down. I'm forced into throwing a full Hydro Cannon to knock them out, but it's not going to matter. Oh my goodness, Blastoise able to put in so much work. Another game that Tinkaton didn't have a lot of play into, but it doesn't matter because Blastoise is going to be able to reach yet another Hydro Cannon here, knock out this Talonflame, and take the win in this match. Blastoise just putting in so much work. Hydro Cannon comes through, one-shots that Talonflame. GG to our opponent. Next matchup, Shadow Malamar once again as our lead into the opposing Shadow Malamar. This is where the matchup really gets annoying. We know Shadow into Shadow will easily two-shot each other with foul plays or with superpowers. Our fast food pressure does almost nothing, so if you win CMP, you win this matchup pretty easily. If you lose CMP, then honestly, it's a pretty bad thing because you lose this matchup and you'll likely be in range where your opponent's going to get yet another move against you in the back. I go for a superpower first because I know I probably don't win the CMP, and it does do a bit more raw damage. We see it puts them into the red, and they're staying in for just a second before swapping into their Shadow Lapras. This is not as comfortable of a matchup as I'd like it to be, saying I'm using a super effective charge attack, or fast attack rather, into them, whereas they're only using a neutral one. But even after our boost to our defense stat with that Skull Bash, it's not going to be enough to make it so Psywave from this Lapras does less damage. In comes a Sparkling Aria, or actually a Skull Bash. We call the move properly here. I kind of figured if they did end up coming Lapras and also shielding my Skull Bash, they probably had Skull Bash of their own, and it was a good call that we did make. Skull Bash number 2 ends up drawing their second shield, actually, and this is an awkward spot for us. I tried to go for the play where I swap out, go for the superpower, but they're able to snipe us down right before that, go for a Skull Bash once again. We did make a nice catch. That's a lot of energy down the drain for this Shadow Lapras, but man, this is going to be kind of tricky to take down. I could bring in my Blastoise here, but I also feel like the energy could be useful in the backline. We saw Lapras as a counter swap into our Blastoise, not exactly the most consistent answer, so I feel like keeping our Blastoise around later on this game could also be useful. Sparkling from a Shadow Lapras, so it does so much damage, as well as the Psywaves doing 2 damage per turn instead of just 1. In comes our play rough. This should knock them out at this point. I don't think they made a catch yet. It does knock out the Lapras. And okay, in the back is going to be a Shadow Bastiodon. Okay, a triple Shadow team, I guess, by our opponent. Unfortunately, it's going to be a Basti as one of the 3 Shadows, which is kind of sad. But I think we're still in a decent spot here. We save the energy on our Blastoise, and in comes the Malamar. This is not going to be able to survive this Bulldoze, and as long as I can reach yet another Bulldoze against the Basti, that Hydro that we have in the backline should be enough to knock them out. In comes the next Bulldoze here. The Basti is not going to be able to farm us down, and our Blastoise at this point with that Hydro Cannon should easily be able to come in, combo play, and knock out this very bulky Rock-type Pokemon. Hydro Cannon being thrown, Bastiodon has nowhere to hide. Blastoise able to close out this game. Next matchup is our Shadow Malamar into a Unnovan Stunfisk. Honestly, I'm going to be interested to see how this matchup plays out. I know that regular Malamar into Ufisk is actually pretty good for Malamar because you survive 2 charge moves pretty easily. But the Shadow here, I'm sure we might actually get 2-shot, which might make things a little bit tricky, saying we also get outpaced. Yeah, it's looking like that is exactly the case here. So while we do have some play with our fast move pressure as well as our charge move pressure, they're going to be able to win the lower shielding scenario matchups just by outpacing us. They go for a discharge to try to call if I caught a move, but either way, I do end up shielding that attack. I go for the foul play here, and I'll throw a second one right before their next charge move. This next foul play will be thrown. It should at this point draw a shield or get a knockout against the Ufisk. Our opponent goes for the no shield, which is kind of fine by me. It's kind of tricky to take that Pokemon out in our backline. And I think at this point, since they stayed in that lead matchup, they came in Jumpluff. Might as well keep my Malamar for later on this game. I swap my water type into the grass type Pokemon, but it's also a flying type, right? So our rollout damage is super effective, and I can reach Skull Bash here to potentially either draw a shield or get a critical amount of damage into this Pokemon. Skull Bash being thrown. We do see a no-shield by our opponent. Fantastic stuff here, and I know they have to go for a full-on acrobatics to knock us out from this point. They do full send, good play by them, and they'll get a farm down with whatever they have in the back. It's going to be a Primeape, which is going to make things a little bit tricky, but I think we do have some play here, right? We have super effective fast move pressure with both my Tinkaton as well as my Shadow Malamar. We have energy on Malamar, and we also are going to be able to survive charge moves here on Tink. They go instantly for a Rage Fizz, not even a bait of a close combat. I guess to be fair, even if they went close combat and I called it there, they probably would have just lost with that defense decrease they would have had. And I also, speaking of defense decreases, get that 50-50 roll on Bulldoze, which, while I don't think it's really going to matter, it's not going to hurt our odds of winning this game. But these Rage Fists, as well as these Karate Chops, are adding up so quickly against our Tinkaton. I will go for the Bulldoze once again, draw their final shield, and then come in with our Shadow Malamar and go for the foul play to try to snipe them down. But they make a fantastic read. They catch the move on their Jumpluff, but honestly, I think I would have had to throw this move anyway, and they have now cleared their boost. I think I can Psywave down thanks to that, and just barely take the win. GG to our opponent. Next game, Shadow Malamar into Shadow Jumpluff. All right, we've seen a lot of regular Jumpluff today. Shadow Jumpluff is actually a little bit trickier because you don't actually do any extra damage to a Shadow Jumpluff than you would a regular Jumpluff. Your charge moves are going to be a much more consistent 2-shot against them, but their foul plays, or rather their aerial aces, are going to do quite a bit of damage to us. So I'm going to come in with our Blastoise after landing that foul play because I think they're basically in range where a Hydro Cannon could knock them out. We shield, but unfortunately they go for a fantastic aerial ace bait, and then they come in with a Furt, a Pokemon that my backline, well, my Malamar as well as my Tinkaton would both much rather be against. Hydro Cannon being thrown, our opponent does end up letting that move through. Next Hydro Cannon coming through, this will basically get a knockout if they let it go. Do we see a no shield from our opponent, or will they want to protect their Furret? They do let that move through. I think I can survive a Trailblaze, though, farm them all the way down, and take Switch, which I think is going to be pretty helpful here, saying the energy on that Jumpluff is going to go into our Tinkaton rather than going into our Malamar. What is that? Eradicate. I thought Obstagoon when I saw that typing. Dark and normal type Pokemon, they're literally triple weak this game into a Tinkaton. That is kind of crazy. It's a Jumpluff lead, what was it, Furret and Shadow Eradicate backline. All right, at this point, we know our win condition is investing here into our Tinkaton. Malamar has very little play, and comes that Jumpluff, and because I know at this point Shadow Acrobatics is going to do more damage than anything that little rat could throw against me, might as well shield up this move and go for these charge moves. I go for a Bulldoze. Honestly, probably a stupid play. If they call this move, it's going to do next to no damage. Did I even throw a charge move there? I can't even tell. That did nothing. I think we're still fine. We have another Bulldoze. Why not throw yet another move that's going to do nothing? Maybe like 10 more of those, and that Jumpluff might go down. We can roll them down, though, actually, after getting that damage, which is pretty nice to see. In comes Eradicate, and while this is a bit of an awkward matchup here for our Shadow Malamar, our Jumpluff, or rather our Tinkaton, is still healthy enough that we should be able to survive the fast pressure, go for Fairy Winds, get a very fortunate Psywave. I'm saying all the wrong moves, man. The Bulldoze debuff, that is, and potentially farm them all the way down. In comes the charge attack here. No Hyper Beam going to be thrown, so we can survive it, take down the rat, and win the game. All right, next matchup, Shadow Malamar into, oh man, that is not great to see. Shadow Sableye, a Pokemon that I didn't think would be too common in this meta. We don't really have a hard answer for this. I guess that's kind of a lie, right? Tinkaton is a good answer, but we are kind of ABA weak because Shadow Blastoise, dude, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm saying Shadow Blastoise, we have the regular Blastoise. Shadow Sableye would be good into our regular Blastoise over time. So I'm going to go for the Chip and Dip with a Foul Play and see what our opponent wants to do. They actually come in with a Claydol to answer our Blastoise here, which is not exactly ideal, right? They've had a good counter to our lead. They've had a good counter to our backline. And I think the worst thing about this, if you put it together, they have two Pokemon that are so weak to Tinkaton. Likely whatever their final Pokemon is in the backline is going to be a true hard counter to our Fairy and Steel type Pokemon. They did let that first move go, and they are going for Grass Knot, which I think is the smart play here. If I were to call a Rock Tomb bait, then they wouldn't do any damage to us. They're going to go for yet another charge move. They might bait us here, but I'm going to hope that they don't, and if they don't, I think I can roll out them all the way down. Grass Knot is going to be thrown. Final Pokemon reveal from our opponent. At this point, Blastoise, man, it's kind of putting in some work right now, and this is not the worst case scenario for a Tinkaton. It's obviously not a great matchup, but if I can get enough Hydro Cannons off into this thing, there's a chance we can have some play. Hydro Cannon number 2 being thrown, I think that since this is also a Powder Snow A-Slash, I can survive the fast pressure as well as a Drill Run, get off a third Hydro Cannon. We've already got both shields from them right now, and I think we'll also be able to reach this Hydro Cannon to chip them down into Bulldoze range. Hydro being reached, our opponent has no choice but to take this move at this point, and I think Tinkaton, as long as I'm careful and I avoid catches, should be able to win this match. In comes the Drill Run. It will be super effective, but it's not going to one-shot us, and they need to reach a second Drill Run if they want to ever have a chance to knock us out. They have that Claydol as well as the Sableye open as catch opportunities here. I wait long enough to see what's going to happen. They end up getting completely farmed down on this Claydol. We have back-to-back charge moves, one for the Sableye, one for that A-Slash. Our opponent has nowhere to go at this point. Bulldoze will be thrown into the A-Slash, and Sableye at this point is so low, there's no chance they can survive enough damage to win this game. Bulldoze being thrown, yeah, Sableye definitely actually in Bulldoze range even, so able to knock this out. Get a full sweep with Tinkaton. GG to our opponent. That is why Tinkaton is still a very scary Pokemon. All right, next battle. Shadow Malamar into a regular Jumpluff. How many of these are we going to see today? I don't even know. We've lost most of our leads today, but Shadow Malamar, even in losing matchups, has play, right? That's kind of the most important thing about it. Foul play is going to add up quite a bit over time, as well as our Psywaves, and our opponent will opt to let that first move go. I try to catch a move here on our Blastoise. You often see I do swap in Blastoise into Jumpluff because it's not honestly that bad of a matchup. I'm going to shield up the move. It is an Acrobatics, so luckily no Aerial Ace bait, and our opponent will try to catch a move on their own Lapras. This is not the worst case scenario, right? We can drain all their energy on our Tinkaton if we can flip switch advantage, and if we can't flip switch, then at the very least we're going to be able to get this Lapras taken care of, so potentially it's not going to be quite as bit of an annoying Pokemon for our Tinkaton later on this game. I know this could potentially be a Skull Bash, but I will survive that move because I've already boosted my defense stat. I have a lot of energy. I can go for a Hydro Cannon here. If they let this go, then I think I might be able to farm them all the way down. If they shield this move up, then I guess we'll see. They do let it go, and they survive a little bit easier than I thought they would. I guess that defense increase putting in quite a bit of work. In comes this Jumpluff once again. Acrobatics might be able to one-shot us here if they do have it. They do go for it, but we survive with just a little bit of HP. I can reach a Foul Play. We have some energy left over on Blastoise, as well as our Tinkaton in the backline, which might be able to put in some work. We get completely farmed down here, but I think now I should be able to farm them down with our Tinkaton depending on their final Pokemon, we have that the Hydro Cannon rather, in the back. Not Blast Burn. That'd be kind of crazy if Blastoise learned that. I guess it would make sense with the name. In comes our Bulldoze bait, though. Our opponent at this point will be forced into shielding something. We go for the Bulldoze. They don't shield that, knowing that I do have energy on my Blastoise here, but I go for a Hydro Cannon that we had loaded. If I can get to a second one, there is a good chance we can win this game. Blastoise able to hang on, reaches a Hydro Cannon on 1 HP here. This should knock out the Ufisk, and I think at this point, this is game over. We don't quite knock them out with that move. It doesn't matter, though. We're able to farm them down with our Tinkaton. That Jumpluff in the backline has very little health on it, and we're able to fair win this down, go for the full farm down, or reach a Charge Move against this Jumpluff. I guess they're throwing a Charge Move just out of any sort of desperation to be able to win this, but I think at this point, Tinkaton, way too bulky. We're able to win this game here. GG to our opponent. Yeah, so with that, finishing off the day with a nice little positive set here. It was a very interesting showcase of Shadow Malamar. I'm not quite sure if I prefer Shadow or regular Malamar. While there are matchups where having the Shadow just raw damage is pretty nice, I also noticed a lot of matchups where you really don't do a lot of extra fast food pressure, which is a little bit awkward. So regular Malamar, I think, is still very viable. Shadow Malamar, though, if you have one, definitely give it a go and see if it's more your playstyle. Alright, well, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed the battles and you want to see more content like this on the channel in the future, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton, and I'd really appreciate it. Thank you again for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.